In today's video, I wanted to talk to you about the pallet that I unboxed last Tuesday, and just wanted to do a follow-up video on that and discuss a few things in relation to sales. So without any further ado, let's go. So this is my update video for the pallet that I received last Tuesday from directliquidation.com. As mentioned in the last video, I'll give you a quick recap. I bought a pallet of electronics, mostly electronics. These are customer returns. It's a Walmart pallet. Estimated MSRP was $10,400. And I spent just around $1,910 for freight delivery from the Midwest to the West Coast. And it was wrapped as I had requested. For those of you who didn't check out my last video, you always want to make sure you have them wrap that, because they will ship that Gaylord with an open top, and it can be a nightmare. People go through your stuff, or stuff will come up missing. So to avoid that, I asked for it to be wrapped, and it was. So when I received the item, I was hopeful that we had a complete manifest. Now, thing with liquidation you have to consider and understand is that there is a caveat that they do not guarantee that you're going to receive every item as listed in the manifest. So a lot of these companies, let's say like bulk.com, they'll guarantee a 98% accuracy on their manifest. There really isn't such a disclaimer on Direct Liquidation's website, but they seem to like to point to bulk.com's policy for some reason. But you know, hopefully you're going to get most of your items. And I understand if items come up missing. Heck, I had a pallet that I received last December from them. It had 26 ratchet sets in there. And like I said, I deal with a lot of electronics. I really don't deal with tools, but you know, these ratchet sets were listed at $100 each, and they weren't there, not a one. And so, you know, I didn't complain. You know, it was a bummer. You know, $2,600 worth of merchandise. Maybe would have been able to recoup about 1,000 of it if I received those tools to resell. But I let it go, you know, because in this business you have to assume some risk. But this time I was really hopeful to get these processors, and I didn't get them. And instead I received a few items that were sort of valuable, maybe $100 here, $150 there, that I need to get around to listing. You know, not getting those $750 processors was a big bummer. So I figured, and there's a Sony speaker, Bluetooth speaker I didn't get in that pallet either. And so I let them know. And I didn't go through the whole pallet. I didn't go piece by piece this time. A lot of times I'll print out a checklist and I'll go through and mark off the ones that I received. I didn't do that this time because I was interested in making a video for you guys, and to make that video and to go through a piece of paper every time I pulled something out of the lot, it wouldn't have made for a very good video. So I did away with that this time, and just sort of was looking for those few items. Now, I didn't get those items. I sent an email to the representative at Direct Liquidation, or they're also known as TRG. And after a couple days I received a reply, and I ended up receiving a canned message stating that, you know, as a buyer of liquidation goods, you assume the risk. And ultimately, I guess they're trying to tell me that I assume the responsibility of an item that doesn't show up in that pallet. But my argument was this. This is not the first time that I've purchased a lot of goods from Direct Liquidation, and the most expensive items, MSRP-wise, have been missing. Back last year, I received a couple different pallets that were supposed to have, you know, Xbox systems, PlayStation systems that made up the bulk of the MSRP, and in one case, 7 items that were supposed to, I think it was 6 or 7 items that were supposed to be in that box that were the most expensive weren't there. And so, they try to lowball you when they try to help you. Like, we're going to go ahead and give you a credit. We don't normally do this, but we'll give you a credit for the missing items. But they didn't give me a value. So I had to send an email back and say, okay, so what exactly are you, trying to give me as a refund? Because I don't want a credit. I really not sure if I'm going to do business with them. And I told them that. So after a couple emails of not giving me an answer, I pretty much cornered him into giving me an answer, and he basically said he was offering me a $3.98 credit for each of those missing items. They weren't going by MSRP, they were going by the number of items in the lot, and I reported 4 missing items, so they're going to give me about a $14 or $15 refund. Now that's a slap in the face, as far as I'm concerned. Now, he ended up coming back saying I can give you an additional $250, but that's as far as I can go. So we're dealing with about maybe, 13-14% of my money back, when 22% is what my calculation was for that missing MSRP, and that's not counting anything I haven't looked for yet. At this point, I can't go back and look for any more items because we've already sorted everything out. So I only reported those 4 items because that's all I know that's missing. But to offer me, less than $4 an item, that's unacceptable. And so, being that my cost I calculated was about $8 an item. So I'm not quite sure where they're getting those figures from, but I wasn't very happy with it, but they came back with an additional $250. So I guess what I would do at this point is I'm going to write off my losses and accept that money back. The other alternative would be to contact my credit card company to get my refund through a dispute. And basically you do a dispute as item not as described, and then you basically sit on that merchandise until your credit card company gives you an answer. It could take 3 months, and but in the meantime you get a full refund. But once you do that, I got to tell you, you lose all rights to buy on directliquidation.com. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not so interested in buying from Direct Liquidation as I was, say, last year, and I'll tell you why. They have really gone downhill as far as the quality of their lots. Okay, I recall back in March of last year, about a month and a half after I started reselling full time, and I ended up getting, I think I bought a lot. It was $13,000 was my cost. It was about $100,000 MSRP, and it contained 140 Apple AirPods in them, as well as other items that had pretty good value. And that was a good flip, and we made about $100 on every one of those AirPods that we received, and we received most of them. And so that in itself paid for this lot. And so, that's the expectation that I've always had as a buyer from Direct Liquidation, is that I was going to receive some pretty good stuff. And over time, it just seems like they are selling like the second and third rate brands that Walmart has, and a lot of the good brands are just not being offered anymore. It's like they're cherry picking their returns. Now, one thing you have to realize about Direct Liquidation that I found out by sort of looking at the packaging is that when a customer buys something on Walmart.com, they're given a label on a return. They're given a sticker that they are to put on the package, and it is returned back to TRG. It's not returned back to Walmart. So TRG is getting all these customer returns directly from the customer, and so they go in and they sort, right? So they might have, kitchen appliances here. They might have electronics here. They might have household miscellaneous merchandise here, and so they'll go in and sort it all into the categories, and then they'll put it up on their site. But I think what they're doing, there's another step that they're doing that they weren't doing last year, is they're taking, your Apple items, your Samsung items, your high-end items, and they're sort of putting them off in a separate lot. And what they do, and I found this out because their labeling gives the whole thing away. They will go in and take these customer return items, and they'll attempt to repair some of the higher end ones so that they can sell them as refurbished lots. And then you can see on their site they sell refurbished lots. So no longer can you find Apple stuff other than accessories, but the Apple, like iPads and iPhones and your AirPods, you really aren't able to find those high-end items in their electronics lots anymore because they're cherry picking those out, and that really loses the value as far as I'm concerned. So it's harder for me to find a pallet that's really going to work for what I'm trying to do, and what I'm trying to do is make a average of $20, $30, $40, $50. That's that sweet spot as a reseller that you want to do on eBay, and I still offer free returns because I sell smaller items. Okay, so yeah, that's sort of my review with Direct Liquidation. Would I buy from them again? It's going to be tough, and I'm going to have to find something I really can't pass up in order to buy from them, because I just don't want to take the chance to buy that lot and you're expecting some nice items and you just don't get them. And it's almost like a bait and switch. Now they tell me, well, it's not a bait and switch, but what are you going to think if you continually order these pallets and it's in the manifest? In fact, they take time to put photos of this very item in their listing, and it's just not there. And so one of two things are happening here. Either they have some dishonest people that work for them and they're just removing these items out of the pallets, doing who knows what, or maybe they're just making a mistake and those items are finding their way into a different lot. I don't know, but it's not right. And you buy something, I expect to receive everything that is on that manifest. Now in customer return condition, about 75% of the items are going to be working condition, and the other 25% is going to have some problems. So if you're buying liquidation, just keep that in mind if you're dealing with customer returns. I've accepted that risk. Okay, my business model, my formula that I use the 40 by 40. I have a video about that a couple months ago, but basically you take the MSRP and you multiply that by 40%. That's what I expect to make, and then I only want to be into that amount that I'm making for 40%. So if I have a $10,000 MSRP, I expect to make, on the low end, I always lowball myself, that's $4,000. If I'm into that for $4,000, or actually I plan on making $4,000 off of that, I want to be into that for 40% of 4,000, which is $1,600. Okay, so that's going to give me the room to make the profit that I need. It's a great formula. I will deviate a little bit and pay a little bit more on lots that are a lot more promising, but I find that I do not lose even with customer returns when I follow that process. So that's something that maybe you can consider. Sourcing is the way you make money in this business. Don't let anyone tell you anything otherwise, okay? Sourcing is the way you make money. If I buy an item for $10 and you buy that same item for $20, it gives me more room to outperform your sales, because if my sales are slow, I simply just mark down that item. And you can't, because you're into that item for $20. So if that makes sense. So sourcing is where you make your money in this business. So with all that said, if I was to give a rating right now with Direct Liquidation, I would say out of 5 stars it would be 2, because they have delivered some good pallets to me, and which is why I would consider maybe looking at them again. But I asked them one question, and I wanted them to answer it before I even think about looking at their stuff again, and that is, what are you doing to fix the issue of missing items from your pallets? And was checking out some reviews earlier, and there's other people who've experienced the same thing, so it's not just me being nitpicky. And so have you all had experience with direct liquidation? Or have you bought liquidation pallets from other companies? And have you had similar experiences where you were expecting to receive items that weren't just missing? If you've had any experiences with this company, Direct Liquidation, or if you've encountered a similar experience that I have, maybe not just with Direct Liquidation, maybe there's other liquidation companies, maybe my expectations of this industry are just a little too high. I don't think so, because, like for instance, I deal with liquidation.com, and they allow you to file a report with them. You have, I think, 72 hours after you receive them. And it's not about condition. Again, you can't complain about condition, but the lack of an item that's reported on a manifest can be credited through liquidation.com. And I don't understand why Direct Liquidation doesn't follow that same model. I think that's good customer service. So if you like the video, if you like the content, if you like the discussion we're having, please consider leaving a like. Smash that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. We're getting a lot more people watching these videos, which is the goal. I like helping people, which is why I take time out of my usually evening to bring this content to you. So that's sort of where we're at with this pallet. So if anything else comes up regarding, maybe they change their mind, they decide to do something better for me, I'll definitely let you know in a future video. But in closing, how are your sales? I got to tell you, my sales the last couple weekends have been really slow, and I'm starting to get concerned. With the economy the way it is, people are out of work. It's been about a month and a half since any type of stimulus has been approved for the people, and that just means they have less money to spend on items that I would be selling if the economy was in good shape. Another thing we need to consider as sellers is that it's summer now, and it's historically in the summer, people are sort of more interested in being outside, doing activities, and they really don't buy as much merchandise on eBay. Just the historical thing. Things tend to start up like end of August when kids are starting to go back to school. But right now our world is turned upside down, so I don't know what the normal is. I can only hope that this is just a short summer trend and that the sales will pick up again in the fall. So in addition, I know this is a liquidation video about direct liquidation, but let me know how your sales are. Are you seeing the same type of slowdown that I'm seeing? Today I think I sold 5 or 6 items. I've been listing a lot of ink cartridges from this pallet. I think I may have listed about 40 items, and maybe 5 or 6 have sold. My other stuff is just kind of sitting there, so I need to revisit get creative, revisit some sales, and see what other things that I can do in the promotion manager to really get my sales going. But for now, it's starting to kind of worry me. So that's our update for tonight. Like I always do, I'm trying to get these videos out every 3 or 4 days. Consider subscribing to my channel, and with that, I'll go ahead and give you the rest of your day or evening. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.